Go get my laptop. All right, well, since it's now 5:02, Dan is commenting on my video. Okay, now it's really starting. Um, so I want to say hello and welcome to the second Q&A that I have done. The first one is actually available on YouTube as well as in the book club group. So I answered a whole lot of questions there, and it's okay if I answer some more. Some of them that are the same in this one. And I have some questions here, so I figure I'll just get started. The first one comes from Jana Duffy, and she asks if I always wanted to write. Um, and the truth is, no, I did not always want to write. I started out, well, as a young person, being very creative, and to the point that, um, as my parents said, they thought until I was 12 that I was going to be a hippie because I would wander the woods singing songs and making up poetry for myself. But I never really liked writing stories, mostly because I would have this great beginning and a great ending, and the middle was always awful, in my opinion. I didn't quite have a technique uh, for working on drafts and working through a project. Of course, I was young, and then I just switched to just doing school, which I did really well, and took to its logical conclusion in that I have a PhD in anthropology. So no, I did not always want to write novels anyway. And I only really started having ideas for writing novels in my 30s. I wrote my first novel starting on April 1st, 2006, just to see if I could. Um, and honestly, it was Lord of the Rings fan fiction with elves and magic rings and all the rest. So that was my first novel, which will never see the light of day. It was Footsteps in Time, which I think you probably all know, was my first sort of real novel. Um, Another question is from Jana: Is did you ever think that your time travel books would be as popular as they are? Um, I think when you start writing a novel, your first books, of course you have dreams of being a famous author, famous on the internet. Um, but with Footsteps in Time in particular, when I started writing it in the summer of 2006, and then I spent nearly 5 years trying to get a publishing contract in the traditional way. And those dreams of having um, lots of people read it were pretty much crushed in that time. So when I did finally start publishing my books myself, and that was in January of 2011, my expectations were very low. And honestly, I think that was a really good thing because I was just excited that people were going to read my books finally. During those 5 years, the only people who'd read them were my agent and my family. Um, so that first month when I sold 22 books, admittedly, three to me, three to my daughter, three to my aunt, um, I was just glad that somebody was interested enough to read what I had to say. Uh, then, thankfully, more people began buying the books month after month after month. So I guess Footsteps in Time, I don't know how many copies it sold now. I guess overall, my books have sold more than 1 million these days. So it's just a dream come true, clearly. I feel really, really grateful and really, really lucky and super glad to have so many amazing readers. The next question here is from Helen. I guess one of a question that I get asked probably at the end of every single book when I publish a book, and at the end, and I says, the end, or it just says, hey, thank you for reading my book, and then I get emails that says, this isn't the last book in the series. Please tell me it's not the last book in the series. And at the moment, I have no intention of wrapping up the After Kilmary series or the Gwen and Gareth medieval mysteries. Um, Honestly, well, I essentially have 3 series going at this time. Those 2 plus the Welsh Guard mysteries, which has just started, and the second book is due to come out in November. Um, the the Last Pendragon saga and the Lion of Wales series are both, in my mind, completed. Even though I know some people would like to hear more from Caden, Rhian, or Merthin and Nell. At the moment, that isn't going to happen. Mia has asked a question here. Do you have any plans to come to any writers' festivals in Australia? Well, Dan is sitting next to me with 2 thumbs up. We would love to come. I think in a way that the whole coronavirus thing has made us more interested in going to more different places now that we can't go to any. We are actually in a real lockdown in our county at this time. And so we have longings for visiting virtually any place other than our living room. So I can't say exactly when, but I think that the chances of that happening sooner in the next couple of years rather than later has increased over the last 6 months, perhaps. Right now, we just would like get back to Wales, but yes, we would love, love, love to visit Australia. Um, yes, and and over time, I'm sure, to here in the book club, if and when we reach the point that we're going to attend a writers' festival in Australia, I will reach out to all my lovely Australian readers and figure out where to go and what to see, and maybe what event we could have, like I've had in Wales, when I've gone to visit there to see readers. Um, so the next question from Melissa, which is interesting, it's more of a technical question, is what kind of statistics do you get from online retailers beyond just purchasing statistics? I get nothing. They tell me when my books sell, and that's about it. There's a, it's all of these online retailers are proprietary. So one of the reasons why I've worked hard to create community in ways that are connected to me, like the Facebook group, obviously, or a YouTube channel, or my own webpage, and many of you subscribe to my newsletter, is because that is information that I can control in some fashion. But Amazon or Nook or Kobo, they just give me information that they deem appropriate, and it's really not very much. I mean, just the number of books sold and how much money you make, not nothing demographic, nothing that tells you who in fact that audience is. She also asks, when do you hope to visit Wales again? And I sort of answered that with Mia's question a moment ago. And honestly, it's as soon as humanly possible. I don't know. We have a plan to hopefully live in Wales, the UK, for up to 6 months. The hope was to do it next spring. Again, the world being what it is at this moment, we have no idea if that would happen. At the very least, we'd like to go for a couple weeks, but we'll just have to see. Judy asks a question. that is actually kind of an interesting one. Are there any specific people in your life or family who you have based characters on? Um, in what sense are they real people? And I have based, well, so two, I guess there's sort of two different questions to that. One is, um, how do I create character? And are they often based on real people? And have I actually taken like a real person and plunked them down in my story? So, uh, on the fun side of that, the first time I did that, I have a friend, Justin, who one day was like, I want to be in your book. And I said, sure, Justin, I'll put you in my book. And I created, for those of you who read the After Kilmary series, Justin, who was David's captain of his guard, as you may recall. Um, yes. And he, oh, that Dan's pointing out that he was the captain of David's guard when he became King of England, or in the aftermath, up to Masters of Time. And if you recall Justin's fate in Masters of Time, I then had to tell my friend that what had happened. I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't read the book. Um, he thought he got a kick out of that. He thought that was great. Um, uh, I have at times taken people that I know, uh, bits of it, or maybe little stories of people. So, for example, in Ashes of Time, Meg and Anna visit where I actually live. And some of the people that they meet there um, are, in a sense, real people, sort of side characters, let me just say. And I talked to them before I did that. I said, I want to borrow you. Um, and then you have sort of the more general question of how do I create character, and would I take somebody who I know, a family member, or just somebody that I know, and write them into a story and call them something else, like Cadwallader. And I honestly, the truth is, I really try not to do that. I don't want anybody necessarily to see one of my characters and think it's themselves. I do, I guess, have to say that I do have a sister, for example, and when I first wrote Prince of Time, she was like, "I'm nothing like Elisa," um, and I was like, "I know, I just borrowed your house." So in that sense, perhaps that my family and friends do see themselves in the book, even if that is not my intent. Hi, Kathy. Yes, my grandbaby is doing wonderfully. We are not posting pictures of her for her privacy, and that's her parents' preference, which I can fully understand. I've been pretty um, well. My children were all grown, essentially before Facebook really happened, and this is a new era where maybe we don't want to post too many pictures of our um, little ones. But she's doing wonderfully. She's now 6 weeks old today, and is 9 pounds 11 ounces. Um, so really quite wonderful, and her parents seem to be doing really well. As for anyone who's had a 6 week old, or been in the vicinity of a 6 week old, those first 6 weeks are really quite astounding, and uh, and but they seem to be doing really well. Hey, Judy. I hope you were here. I just was talking about character. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. And your next question is, oh, well, thank you for saying I'm incredibly accessible. It makes it easy to connect. And that's one of the things that's partly my personality, I guess, is that I'm more of an extrovert than sometimes I think of myself because I spend most of my time in my computer by myself. But actually, it's one of those things with coronavirus where I have come to realize that I need more. Um, I need more people than I am currently being exposed to. So it has been lovely to have the Facebook group and to meet all these people online because, of course, we all are also scattered across the planet, um, and it's something that I really enjoy. So. Hi, Robin. It is great to see you. Let me just also say that, it's been almost 20 minutes here, but you can always go back to the beginning and watch it from the beginning, and we will be posting this stream when it's done. We'll post it on YouTube as well as in the group so that anybody who missed it can see it. It's been wonderful to be able to connect with Australia. I know it's the being accessible means that I thankfully have readers from all over the planet. We here are it's 5:20 p.m. on Pacific time and middle of the night in Europe, so most of our European friends are not able to come. And then some hour of the morning in Australia. It's really quite astounding that we can do this. Um, So Kathy makes the comment, I love the way the Gareth and Gwen series is changing in subtle ways. Actually, I'd be interested to know um, what you mean by that. I have my own ideas about what I'm doing and where we're going with it. Um, but it's really interesting when readers take what I have written and essentially run with it. Um, So I don't actually have any more questions queued up. I know that there must be something that you'd like to ask. Um, so my husband, Dan is sitting over here next to me, which you can't see in the camera, and he just asked something that is relevant for him because he's the first reader. Is what's the status of the latest book? So The Prince's Man was published in July. That's the 13th Gareth and Gwen medieval mystery. And next up is the next Welsh Guard mystery, book 2. And my current plan is to put up the pre-order next week, maybe soon, before the end of August for sure. And that means it will be released in November. I'm actually really excited about this book. I'm not probably really excited about every book I write, so which is I think a good thing. But I'm really glad to be able to add a second book to that. What I hope is ends up being a really long running series. Um, so I need more questions, and there's a delay here too. So I sit here and I'm like, I need a question, and it takes like a minute or something for the responses to come in. Um, gosh, that's a hard one. Yeah. So Robin asks, how will not traveling to France and Wales this year affect the writing of your novels? Yeah, we did get to go to France. Dan's sitting here commenting beside me. We did get to go to France in January, which was fantastic, and I'm really, really glad we squeezed that in. We haven't been to Wales in over a year, and while what it's doing is that if there's a place that I haven't been to, I am forced to use Google Earth, um, which maybe you shouldn't confess to, but 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 Google Earth is really really good. And truthfully, at this point, I've been to almost every place in Wales. But Dan, so Dan was saying the as you'll soon find out, the next Welsh Guard mystery is set in this little place called Nevin, in the Shen Peninsula. And I said to Dan, I wish I had spent more time in Nevin. And he said, we drove through it. I was like, oh, good. Um, I would love to go there. And it's not that I think I'm getting things wrong, but I do wish that we'd had the opportunity to see a little more, because every time I go, I get a little bit more inspired. And we have started to sort of dig down into some of the more remote, uh, still incredibly interesting sites. And I think that there's just a lot more. We have a still ton on the list that we'd like to see. And it's always just so inspiring to go. Um, which is partly why, as I was saying before, we would like to actually live in Wales for a couple of months and really soak that in. I feel jealous of all the people who are currently in Wales, who are sleeping now. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Um, Judy's mentioning how much writing my books has made other people love Welsh history, and and I do I have discovered over time that unintentionally or not, or intentionally or not, that I tend to be something of of I sort of evangelize Wales a little bit, because I love it so much, and I think I'm in a really interesting position because there are not a lot of people writing books set in medieval Wales like right now. I mean, there's the books that we've all enjoyed, like the Brother Cadfael novels or Sharon K. Penman's. But for right now, like somebody who writes books set in medieval Wales the way I do, I don't know really anyone who does that. And that means that because so many people have read my books now, they are being introduced to an area of the world that maybe they have never thought about before. And that's really exciting. It's just it sort of is a it's not a burden. I don't mean to say that, but it's like I feel an obligation to really get things right, and to be just a little bit inspiring that way. Like, gosh, I would really like to go see that castle or church, or maybe like take a little trip, which of course none of us can do right now. Um, I know, I know. I'm going to keep reading. I actually have Kathy's note here. Um, So Kathy says, After Canary is still my all-time favorite. I get so attached to the characters that when things change, I don't like it. I don't like the way Earth One is trying to control Earth Two. I just want them to live happily ever after and want David back home. Laugh out loud. You often seem to have very deep thoughts that you convey that I really find thought-provoking. Honestly, it's really, I love the characters too. I love them, and making them suffer is is hard. Um, and it's like you don't want them to suffer too much. Sometimes it's necessary to make a good story. What I hope is that my readers, 19 books in, I guess it's 17 novels in, trust me enough by this point, that to do it right. That I do love these characters as much as you, and it isn't as if I'm never gonna kill somebody off, but I'm invested in telling a good story. I mean, that's the thing, and I talked about it last time that I made the promise that I would never write one of these books just to write a book. That wouldn't do it unless I had something to say and a story to tell. And or as Kathy said, a very deep thought that I'm conveying. And mhm. Yeah, and so Robbins followed up with will some of the other characters in the After Chimera series get some of their own adventures the same way Cassie and Callum have previously? Yes, I think so. So the moment I'm sort of writing in story arcs, you may have noticed, and like the last four before Unbroken in Time kind of were a complete story. They were all taking place essentially at the same time, different characters getting their stories. Obviously, Refuge in Time was just Michael and Livia in that same way of Cassie and Callum had been in Exiles in Time. So I imagine that more of that is coming. You know, I have to please myself for the story. I have to lay the groundwork for more story. So bringing in Michael, bringing in Livia was important for what's going to happen down the road. At the same time, I definitely get a deluge of where is David every time I do that. So you know, it is something that I have to think about if I'm going to commit to characters that are off, you know, not let me just say not David or not Megan Swellen. Then I have to have, you know, a real story to tell in order to do that. Oh, so Sandra and Christine are here. And it's nice to see so many people here. It's pretty wonderful. Judy says it's the Middle Ages, people get killed off. But you know, I mean, yeah, I don't want I don't want bad things to happen to them either. Um, yeah. And, you know, and back to the issues of location, um, I think I'm something of a perfectionist, which I think can be a good thing in terms of getting the history right. And maybe that's because my parents were both historians, or it's just my character. And there have been, and I discussed this in This Small Corner of Time, which was is the companion volume to the series. Uh, the times that I have made mistakes. Um, Mostly in some of the earlier books, but not necessarily always. Um, so and I don't know, I can't remember if we put this in The Small Corner of Time, but like in Prince of Time, uh, what was the town? An Annan. It's like in the wrong place. Like they jump off a cliff and there's no cliff there, and we moved it, and it's a alternate universe, and we're just gonna call it good. Um, and that's a product of not having actually been physically there. It in the end doesn't matter fundamentally, but those things do sort of grate at me. So I do really try very hard to get them right. Um, One of the things, just even more on this topic, is when I first started writing back in 2006. And this is another thing for poor whales, is that the digitized the mapping, the Google Maps had digitized all of England, but when you got to the border with Wales, it was like it was a low resolution, like just green, and you couldn't see anything. Sometime in the following couple of years, I just didn't even bother to go look because there was nothing there. Suddenly, I log on to Google Earth and it's like digitized again. I'm like, yay! I can actually see these places. I can actually drop myself down on this road and see the hill over there, or that castle, or this church, um, and that was a very exciting moment the day Wales entered the 21st century. Kathy asks, as an author, do you ever feel pressure to not tick off your readers and stay true to yourself and your story? It sounds like that is what you're saying. You're staying true to telling your story. And yes, that is I know my readers are passionate about these characters. And you know, occasionally I'll get an email saying this is sort of basically telling me what somebody wants to happen in the next story, and I just have to be like, I've got the vision, and this is where we're going. Even so, as an example, at Children of Time, um, when Meg and Swellen come back and bring Callum with them, my mother-in-law, who is one of my editors, um, said, "Why do you have this guy? You know, what purpose does he serve?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna need him. I need him." Um, and I knew at that point what Exiles in Time was going to be by the time when I was still writing Children of Time, and I was like, I need him. And it's that kind of thing where bringing in Callum didn't sort of tick off readers, but it is sort of like I'm laying the groundwork for later books. The pressure not to do something that would make them mad. Well, so for example, Unbroken in Time ends in something of a cliffhanger, um, of which I'm fully aware. Uh, and I decided that there was literally no other way to end that book. The story was completed in many respects, in 98% of the respects. But this one hanging thread couldn't be finished without an entire other book, and so I left it the way I left it, and I've gotten some mail about that. But I really felt I was like, this is what it has to be. In the same way, Daughter of Time ends, as you all know, with something of a unfinished. The story was finished, but obviously Meg and Swellen were not together. There was no other way for that story to end. Uh, well, it already published Footsteps in Time and Prince of Time, so it is a prequel. There was no other way for it to end, but even to this day, I'll get the 1 star, really angry review about it, and it's like that's what had to happen, and I knew even at the time that I was going to pay a price for that. So, oh yeah, and Dan sitting here telling me another example is, of course, what happens in The Lost Brother, the Gareth and Gwen Medieval Mysteries. That is, of course, true history. So there was no question about how that had to end. Which gives me a little bit of cover. Whereas in something like the After Chimera series, which the characters are not real, you got to. I am in fact making it up and ending it that way. Robin asks, "Have you ever taken on a suggestion from a reader?" Um, I don't think so. Not one that I had not already considered, I guess. Other than, like, as I said earlier, writing Justin into the book for fun. Um, Honestly, in some ways, I try not to. Like I like it's better for me and my own creativity to not to. I have to compartmentalize and have like my relationship with readers and being open to and accessible, and then writing the story has to be a separate thing that I initially write without input from anybody else. Otherwise, I think there's too much pressure, and it affects my creativity. Um, Let me see what else we've got. Oh, Sandra asks, "Do you ever regret introducing a character?" Um, I Not so much a character. Um, there have been times when I feel like I'm riding a bucking bronco, or I have gone down a rabbit hole, as in Alice in Wonderland, and I am just got to write myself out of whatever situation I got myself into, and that's really a product of writing a series. Like, you made things happen back here, and now you're stuck with that result. Um, uh, I felt that probably the most. And the most sort of pressure about it with finishing the Last Pendragon saga, with all the mythology and all the magic, and not making it um, too crazy. Um, so that not so much a character, but situations and trying to resolve something where I had written this huge thing, and I needed to end it. Endings are hard for that. Um, I do confess to sometimes forgetting about characters, um, and um, wishing I had remembered that I'd written a character into a book in book 3, and now it's book 15. And I was like, oh, what happened to that person? Oh, whoops. Um, Sometimes I've caught that, fortunately, before I actually published it. So I did, for a period of time, kind of forget about Gwen Sheehan. Um, and it was actually my son who said, "What happened to Gwen Sheehan in After Kamari series?" I'm like, "Oh, it is another child. Wait a minute, I have to include her." Um, yeah. So hi, Terry. Yeah, it's nice to see you here. The pre-order is already up for Outcast in Time. It's coming out in March, for certain, sure. Um, I have made that the deadline, and it will happen. There's possibility if I finish it sooner that it will be a little sooner, but it will be in March, and you can pre-order that at all retailers worldwide now. And as I said, the next Welsh Guard mystery is coming out in November. So I'm trying to basically write 3 books a year. I have 3 series ongoing. That's essentially my goal at this time. Yeah. Um, Dan's telling me that I've been super excited about the next After Kamari series, and that is absolutely true. Like, so when I ended Unbroken in Time, I had the whole outline for the next book, but I had to write the next Gareth and Gwen, and then I had to write the next Welsh Guard mystery. So I've been what is it, champing at the bit to start, um, to really get. I mean, I actually have the first chapter and so on for Outcast in Time, but to really delve into it, I need to have finished this next Welsh Guard mystery, which I'm at the end stages of starting to um, give it to other people to read and so on. So it's coming. It's coming. I know it can never be soon enough, but it is coming. Are there any more questions? I think we have about 5 minutes, and I know that there's a delay between when I ask this question here in my living room in Oregon and when you see it. Um, but I wanted to say how much I have enjoyed talking to you all, and I hope that you have enjoyed hanging out with me for 45 minutes. Um, if you have any suggestions for future um, Q&As or little talks, I'd be happy to look at that down the road. And of course, all of you are in the Facebook group, so you know that I'm here all the time. Yes, and Terry just said she pre-ordered already, so yay. Kathy asked, do you ever see it becoming a TV or movie series? Well, obviously, I would love that. Um, it's a, sort of, it's a completely theoretical thing at this time because, Ridley Scott is not beating a path to my door. You would want it to be good, right? Um, I at one time had some queries for it that didn't pan out. And at this time, nobody is inquiring. And I'm not a screenwriter, I'm not a TV show writer. It would have to be come from somebody else. And yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I think it would be fantastic. I love TV and movies myself. So to see this on the big screen would be fantastic. Or a little screen. Yes. Robin asks, will we see Godfred again soon? Um, uh, a qualified yes. We are not done with Godfred. He is one of my favorite characters, and he's been in, I don't know, been in, there's 13 novels. He's probably been in five, I think, five or six. So there are a lot of connections historically, as I've talked about for the Gareth and Gwen medieval mysteries, between Gwynedd and Ireland, both the Gaelic side and the Danish side. So yes, we will be seeing Godfred again. Actually, one of a reader actually here locally said, so how about a Godfred mystery and a Connell mystery and a Gareth and Gwen mystery every year? I was like, I can't write 6 books a year. So, but yes, I love him too. Yeah, well, I think that is it. And it's been great to talk to you. And I will see you on Facebook.